Guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to, first of all, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. This is an exciting time for the team. Of late, on the weekends and during the week, I am connecting with and communicating with, and the other leaders are also connecting and communicating with many of you who are having transactions come at you prior to perhaps you being familiar with a transaction, right? Maybe you're gotten your license a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago or a couple months ago even, and we haven't reached that point in your training where you want to be able to get yourself through it. So that brings us to tonight's topic, which is kind of in the middle of training for those of you that are newer. And it's the timeline that you'll follow when you have a buyer in contract or you have a listing in contract. But I wanted to start with this particular display because it has to do with what we're going to be talking about and kind of what we're going to end the meeting with, which is PTAC. I get a lot of agents who are newer to the team that ask me what in the heck that means. So we will talk about PTAC and we'll use this particular slide when we get there. But this also has to do with one of the mantras of AMP, and I think the folks that have been around for a while, Justin might be able to comment on this. I know Sheila can. They've been involved in some transactions and quite a few of them. When we talk on this team about your effort that is related to growing your real estate business, imbuing your world with real estate, growing your footprint in real estate, we use a lot of those statements to describe what we're achieving on the platform. And you often hear me talk about the 100% of your effort, not so much time, but effort. And effort is critical, obviously, when you set a vision for a number of transactions that you wish to do. A newer agent, Michelle, is in the room, and we haven't yet gone through her vision sheet, but we're going to be doing that this coming week. So you have a goal for 3 or 5 transactions in your first year in real estate and the effort that it takes to achieve that. And when I talk about 60% of your effort in business should be spent filling your pipeline of potential transactions. And then I talk about 10% of your effort is getting someone through a transaction. And then 30% of your effort is perhaps sometimes in your mind, strangely enough, should be set aside for taking care of closed clients and staying in contact with them. It's the 10% one that always gets the most pushback because, of course, we're all here to enter into transactions with potential buyers and sellers. And we think to ourselves, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. There's got to be more effort that goes into this than just 10% of my 100%. So tonight's training is specifically designed to give you actionable steps that would smoothly get a buyer or a seller through a transaction. So that transitions us to the updated AMP timeline. I sent this out to everybody before this meeting. You all have it. Please keep all documents and videos that the team leaders send you in a desktop folder on your desktop. Yes, Sheila, I will get there, I promise. I just have to get it open first and then I'll move it. So Dana Kitchen, thank you, Dana, put a tremendous amount of effort into redoing our transaction timeline. So let's think about this. We're going to go over we're actually going to go through the buyer one first. Let me skip down to that. You have a buyer in contract. This presumes that all the documents are done, that they've been accepted by the seller, and now you have someone in contract. It feels a lot like, guys, when you first got your license and you put it with Red One and you wake up one morning and say, well, now what? I've achieved this step in my real estate life. Now what do I do? Well, this is a very similar situation. You've put a buyer in contract. Now what? The transaction timeline that's contained in .loop is an excellent tool. It gives you things that are to be done according to your contract and the dates by which they're to be completed. However, it falls short as it relates to actionable steps. What should I actually be doing? I know what I'm to be doing, but how do I go about it? This is a step-by-step checklist for you. So let's just go through it. You have a buyer in contract. Your first step, once they're in contract, is to send the fully executed contract to your buyer's lender. So let's talk about that concept, why that's first. And part of the reason why we all will come to believe and understand that a transaction could be, should be effortless. Think of all the folks that you're relying upon as a real estate business owner to assist your clients through a transaction. You're on a team with your buyer, right? But there are other players. I mean, we consider ourselves the hub of this, right? We went out and communicated and grew trust through some type of marketing campaign, or through our Facebook, or through KV Core, or meeting somebody at a party. And we've done that work to bring a buyer to the table, and now they're in contract. At that point, guys, we are the hub of this transaction, which is why we have to have these actionable steps. In order for this to be effortless, we have to engage with our buyer's lender. The relationship between a buyer and their lender is critical. The relationship between a buyer, their lender, and their agent is more critical. So you've got lenders, you've got title folks, you've got appraisers, you've got home inspectors, you've got yourself. There's a lot of folks involved in I saw you move. There's a lot of folks involved. Sheila is the sergeant at arms for these meetings. And whenever my mouse is not right down in the lower right, they can't see the screens here. So if you're wondering why we're laughing every once in a while, that's the picture that you would have in your head. At any rate, you send the fully executed contract to your buyer's lender because they are an important spoke. And you want them updated right away and starting down the road to getting that buyer fully approved, loan committed, and ready for closing. Second step, which is generally complete by now, but just as a reminder, you're going to follow the transaction timeline in your .loop document. So that needs to be filled out. Fill in the timeline. So as you're gathering your documents together, you've got a buyer in contract. I'll get it. You've got a buyer in contract. You will want to ensure that that transaction timeline in .loop is filled out. It has all the information on it that you could possibly desire. Buyers, sellers, lender, title person, they're all on there. Sure.
So I do get a lot of questions on that timeline, the one that we fill out in
Yeah.
Yep. And so I think at some point it might be good just to hit on that because
sure,
it's not always clear.
Okay.
So
we should be able to have time tonight. I'll
okay.
Pull that up. The question / statement in the room was, I get some questions on the transaction timeline that's in .loop, and it might be good to go over that. So we will tonight. So number one, send the fully executed contract to your buyer's lender. What does your buyer's lender want at a minimum? Well, they want the contract and any counter offers for sure. And generally speaking, most lenders also want to see the residential property disclosure form. Is there anything else that you think they want to see? Contract? Agency disclosure? Not sure, but yeah, you could send the agency disclosure. I don't think I've ever had a lender request it from me, but maybe. They've requested the RPD a lot. So that's what you send. Contract, any counter offers, fully executed, and the RPD at a minimum. If you have the lender ask you for more, send them more, but at a minimum, send them those 3 documents. You're going to fill out the transaction timeline in .loop, send it to your clients. We can update our clients as to the actions we're taking on their behalf to grow our value in their eyes. But certainly at a minimum, they should see that what should be happening and when, dates and everything filled in on the timeline that we're going to look at in a minute on .loop. And then number 3, send all the fully executed documents for your buyer and submit those for review. That would be virtually the entire list of documents: the buyer advisory, the consumer guide, the contract, any counteroffers, the agency disclosure, the RPD. Admin is checking to make sure that we're compliant as it relates to real estate law and that we have a full contract. So you can basically check a box, which is your entire sales folder, and send them all. If you want to send them your client's pre-qualification, there's no personal information on there. Do that too. Make it easy on yourself. That's step 3. Submit all your documents. And then, yes, there's a transaction checklist, sales folder checklist. Send that. It's in your loop automatically. Make sure that's filled out. When I train you guys, when you're making offers, I train you to go ahead and check those boxes in advance of your offer getting accepted. This sends out the proper message to the universe, and it also is just a step that you can take right then and there when you have it open. So you've got 3 very specific steps right there. Any questions about those steps? Okay, step 4, confirm the title company information. Generally, it's on the MLS. If not, by that point, certainly the listing agent has shared it with you. And it says, or by contacting the listing agent. So confirm that information. And then every title company that you'll ever deal with, whether you have a buyer or a seller, wants to know 4A on this list. They want to know your client's name, cell phone number, and email address, whether or not you have any administrative fees. If you use Admin Assist, you would disclose that at that point if you're charging your buyer that fee. Your commission, either what's negotiated after August 17th or what's listed in the MLS. And then from .loop, guys, Red 1 has wiring instructions so you can get paid. Download that. I made a habit a long time ago. I downloaded a consumer guide for a buyer, a consumer guide for a seller, and the Red 1's wiring instructions, and they're in a desktop folder because I use those often. So you're sending an email to the title company. You're giving them your client's name, cell phone number, email address, whether or not you have any admin fees, your commission that's due to you, and you're attaching your Red 1 buyer broker's commission wiring instructions for you to get paid at the end of this. You're saying hi. What is the subject line in every email that you would send to any party connected with a transaction?
The address.
The
Property address.
Property address, every time. That's how they all look it up 99% of the time. So just put the address in.
On the app,
Mm-hmm.
if someone wants to join it.
At the beginning, right up front. So guys, if you're using Admin Assist and you want make sure you disclose to your client right up front that they have an admin fee. I think there's a .loop document that they need to sign for it, but whether or not it exists, go back to school for a minute. Hondros tells you disclose, 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 disclose. Don't let that be something that jumps up and bites you at the end. Number 5, connect the title company with your buyer's lender. As Dana and I put this together in the last 48 hours, that should be connect the title company with your buyer's lender. She'll make that correction and someday in the future. So you just connect them, guys. It's to the title company, whoever the title person is, and to your buyer's lender. And the subject line is the property address. Say, hi, guys, I just wanted to connect you folks. Make sure you're all wrapped up and you start communicating about this transaction we have in contract. Right? Send your buyers the name and contact person at the title company, reminding your buyers to watch out for emails and correspondence from the title company. The title company is going to be reaching out to your clients. You already gave them all their information up above. So just little friendly reminder to your buyers in this particular case, hey, you're going to hear from these folks from the title company. And buyers have a lot going on, don't they? So you make their life as easy as you can. We put this as number 7 because whether you have earnest money to be collected 3 days after going into contract or 3 days after remedies, is a good little reminder for you at the very beginning of this. Make sure that you collect the earnest money according to the contract. And the contract, moving forward, we're training this way on all contract training with all AMP agents. Let's all get into a habit of this. No matter what else is under additional terms and conditions in the contract, one of the things that we want you to get into a habit of as a buyer's agent from this day forward, this is the first time you're hearing this. Number 1, this might be the one of more than one additional term and condition. If it's the only one, skip the number. Buyer shall deliver earnest money to seller's choice of title company and seller shall agree. Buyer shall deliver earnest money to seller's choice of title company and seller shall agree. Guys, every brokerage in town and across this great country is required to have an escrow fund in which they put earnest monies. Every brokerage would also tell you and their admin people that they hate it. It is an administrative nightmare for both the admin team, God bless them, and for us as agents. Think about you having to collect it, deliver it to Red One or put it in Red One's Chase account, then having to remember to fill out the .loop document that requests a copy of the check back and take it to closing. How many people on the call have had a closing where they forgot to collect the earnest money? Raise your hand. Mine went up. So you're left with no choice at closing but to say, please take the earnest money out of my commission. I'll straighten it out with my broker when we get my commissions. Avoid all of that. Your client can wire, or you or your client can take a cashier's check in the amount of the earnest money directly to the title company, and the title company will then take responsibility for giving everybody a receipt.
I have a statement. It's Dana. I personally hand deliver that earnest check for my client to the title company versus having them take it. They have enough going on this first couple of days once we're in contract. I just do that as a service to my clients.
Perfect. I tend to either do that or connect them to the title company and have the title company send them their wiring instructions and then instruct my client to ensure it came from the title company and then just wire the money and they don't have to do anything else other than go to their bank. But that's a great idea, Dana. Yes, Sheila.
So one of the things with the cashier's check, so I had a client that deals with only electronic bank. I don't think he's ever written a check. And so that was more of a challenge than what I was anticipating. And he wasn't, like, the earnest money was due over the weekend and he didn't wire it. He didn't really, so I think, as an agent, it didn't cross my mind that he wouldn't be able to go to the bank and get a cashier's check.
Yes.
So now it's a question that I know to kind of
Ask people.
and be prepared, because if it's due over the weekend, there's just not any way to do it.
Sure. I like it. Guys, number 8, if we handle this properly, is superfluous. Deposit it in the Red One Chase account. Just avoid Red One altogether. Mike Hall and Ken Fairchild would give us all a bonus if they never had to collect another earnest money check again. All right. If your buyers have purchased a condo, make sure your buyers have seen the HOA, COA documents. Let's go over that right now. By contract, if the single family home your clients are purchasing, that community has an HOA, or every condominium association has a condominium association, the listing agent owes you by contract, your client, the documents that are contained in the contract. It's the minutes of the last meeting. It's their current financials. There's a list of things. And HOAs and condo associations handle those differently. Whatever they've got, the listing agent is required to give that to you. Get into a habit as a listing agent of knowing that there's a homeowners association or not, and getting those documents prior to listing a property and download them to the documents section so that the agent who's buying the house, the person who's buying the house, you go into contract with that agent, they can just download them from the listing. But that's a reminder there Let's not forget about HOA docs. And then you have the scheduling of your inspections if they exist on your contract. These are, guys, these are emails from 1 through 6 are emails. Schedule your inspections. We all know that our buyers should be scheduling their inspections if they intend to be there. If they don't intend to be there, you're welcome to schedule the inspections. You schedule them. I'm sorry, the inspection company is chosen. You are the buyers. Call the inspection company. Your buyer pays for them. And then that inspection company takes you from there. They call the showing service and set up the inspection. It's confirmed by the listing agent, and your inspections are scheduled according to your contract. Guys, Dana put this in yellow for a reason. And this is why this is effortless. All of the above should happen within 24 to 48 hours after entering into contract. You're sitting down and sending a bunch of emails, guys, just connecting all the dots, submitting some documents electronically for review. This is not you having to get into your car and do a whole lot. This is effortless stuff. And these are actionable steps. Right? Any questions about 1 through 10? It follows your contract. It gives you actionable things to do, who to do it with, and how to do it. Any questions there? Scheduling of inspections. If you're in contract, your buyers are responsible for scheduling and paying for their own inspections with referrals from you, unless they want to Google it and find their own inspection company. And of course, pay attention to dates. The reason why Dana made that note is there's sometimes confusion out there in the agency world that if you put in 5 days for inspections and 3 days for remedies, that you have 5 days for inspections and an additional 3 days for remedies. The contract states that you have to have your inspections completed and any request to remedy to the listing agent within that first 5 days. You have 3 days to negotiate remedies. But you've got to get your inspection done and your request to remedy, if there's going to be one, to the other agent within the 5 days of your inspection time frame. This is sort of turning into contract training, but I'll also mention this. You all know that our contract states that your client can terminate the contract for any reason during the inspection period. They can wake up one day and be in a bad mood and terminate if they choose. And a good selling agent knows that. So if you're up against an agent who puts in no inspections and no remedies, and your client wants inspections for informational purposes only, those two are not equal. Don't think that they are. They're not equal. Okay. Sure. Question in the room.
When you go into contract, and let's say you have 5 days for the inspection, does that 5 days start when you go into contract?
Generally speaking, you can count the next day as your first day. If everything is signed, if it's signed at 8 a.m., is somebody going to get picky about that? Maybe. Because that's the date of your contract. It's 5 calendar days.
Look at it as the day that it's executed is always day 0.
There you go. That's another way, the better way of answering the question. The day your contract is executed is day 0. The 5 calendar days starts the day after your contract is executed and goes out 5 calendar days. That includes the weekends for those of you that are confused about calendar days versus business days. 1 to 2 days, guys. If you put somebody in contract, your buyer in contract, this stuff can all be done in about an hour. I mean, you can't collect the earnest money, but you get the point. You can shoot out some emails in about an hour and have this stuff squared away. Negotiate remedies. Again, you negotiate those remedies within that remedies time frame. If you cannot come to closure on that, it is incumbent upon you as a buyer's agent to terminate the contract. You can't just continue to allow those dates to come and go and not have something in writing that we've agreed to these particular remedies. And then you're waiting. Number 12. Question in the room. No, it's a great question. So Michelle's question is, if we can't come to an agreement on the remedies, if we have remedies in our contract by the 5th day, can you terminate? It's not by the 5th day that you have to terminate. It's, let's say you have 5 days in for inspections and 3 days for remedies. By the 5th day, as a buyer's agent, you have to have your inspection done and your remedy request to the listing agent. That's your 5 days. Then you've got 3 days, as the answer to your question, Michelle. You've got 3 days to negotiate those in writing, right? You send over your buyer's request to remedy. The listing agent responds, presume that they're going to do everything. Everybody signs that, you're done. As long as that happens in 3 days.
If it doesn't happen in 3 days.
Then it is incumbent upon you to let your client know. Our other option is you have 2 options. You can extend your remedy request timeframe with the selling agent's permission and their seller's signature. And that may sometimes happen. You might have a seller that's wanting to be cooperative. Their agent and them are going out and trying to get quotes for this stuff. Hey, we want to do this stuff. We're trying to get quotes. Can't get them in those 3 days. Let's extend that remedy period. Because your other choice, if you're not getting that close to, is, guys, you need to terminate it. Either extend it or terminate it. Don't leave your client hanging out there with something unresolved. That eliminates their possibility of terminating for that reason if you let those dates come and go without a change. Negotiate remedies, and now you're kind of waiting for 2 things. The title company owes you a title commitment. They will send it. Generally speaking, those are taking about 2 weeks to get to my clients. So 14 days after going into the contract, you should probably have a title commitment. It's sitting there reminding you, hey, you probably need to make sure the title company is on that. And then 13, the loan commitment.
Can we talk about title?
Sure. We're talking about title commitment.
So if it's a time frame.
For closing? Yeah.
I think that they have to give it to you 15 days before closing.
Technically, that's the law, yes.
Well, but if you're like, if we can close in 12 days,
Okay,
or let's just say 20, like, is that feasible?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
It's typically taking 2 weeks.
that's okay. Sheila's question is, let's say you have a closing that's going to take place in 20 days. And her concern was that the title commitment's not going to be there in time. Guys, we communicated up here a lot with the title company and the lender. Remember, we talked about other spokes, knowing what in the world they're supposed to be doing. So it's a balance of 2 things to answer to Sheila's concern. 1, trust that the title people can see that this is closing in 20 days and we better get on our horse and ride towards the closing. So we need to get this title commitment work started now. And 2, if it really worries you, send them an extra email and say, guys, just to make you aware, this is a 20-day closing. We're going to need that title commitment paperwork sooner rather than later. So you can take both approaches if you'd like. Remind them, because it's here to remind you, right? And trust them.
And if they
Trust but verify.
in that case, it's still due that 15 days prior to.
In that case, I'm sure that that's a gray area that nobody's going to hammer on them for. Yeah. Loan commitment. Let's just talk about this real quick. We're getting starting to run out of time. Did you know that if you left the loan commitment portion of the contract blank, that by leaving it blank, you're protecting your buyer for the entire term of the contract? and they don't have to provide a loan commitment at all? It says it right there. It's really funny. I wouldn't do that, because if I were dealing with a experienced, savvy listing agent, they'd catch me. But you can protect your client for the entire term of the contract by putting nothing in there. So I just thought that was a little fun aside. But if you put 10 days in there, guys, your lender better be prepared to provide it in 10 days. And why should that not be a surprise? Are we not, as licensed, practicing, gaining experience, expert real estate agents, connecting with a buyer's lender most often? Yes, everybody in the room has an exception where a buying client calls them on a Saturday night and wants to see a home Sunday morning. They don't have their pre-qualification and it's a weekend. I understand the exceptions. With those exceptions aside, we've connected with our buyer's lender. We might even have referred them to them. Certainly, you've had a discussion with the lender asking them, hey, how's your processing going? And if we make an offer, can you help me make it really aggressive? How quickly can you get a loan commitment? Kyle Dines and Troy can get a loan commitment in 10 days. They brag about it, and they should. So loan commitment should not be something you're guessing at when you're making your offer. You should have a sense of how quickly, with your buyer's cooperation, that lender can get a loan commitment done for you. And you need to be on the lookout for it right here. Guys, it's in red on purpose. Stop and breathe. Basically, you've sent out a bunch of emails and you've ensured that you're the concierge, right? You don't need to light up your brain with a bunch of stuff that you may be forgetting. It's right here. You're not forgetting anything. Relax. This is not it will become more effortless for you. If your personality is the type where you like to look at the bridge that you have not yet crossed, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens or that? Then ask those questions now, so we can help you with it. I was going to be more disparaging and so say we can make fun of you, but I won't do that. Okay. I can't count the number of times I've spoken to Sheila and Justin and Kevin and other people in the room and on this call about these situations that may be coming, and we just strategize on them. And they'll all tell you that 95% of the time they don't end up happening. Don't fill your brain with that. Fill your brain with this. This is your job. It's not a big effort. So breathe a little bit. After you get through these first 13 steps, and yeah, it's 13 steps because we are breaking it down and giving you actionable steps. It may be 13 steps, but it's about 2 hours worth of work all told. Weekly update emails. So now you're in contract. Your client has been approved for their loan. By contract, they've applied for their loan in time. They've been approved for their loan. You've gotten through inspections. You've gotten through remedies. The title commitment's there. Your loan commitment's in. Everything is hunky. You can just relax, because right now, all you're going to do is marshal the troops via email. You don't need to go see a title person and stand on their desk and make sure they're doing their job, or the lender. You're just sending emails, guys, and you're making sure that the listing agent, because it says it right there, weekly update email to all parties. If the time frame is shortened, then you'll be sending these sooner, won't you? But most contracts take 30, 35 days, 40 to close, right? So you've got time. Send an email. The first one is listing agent, title person, and lender. Blind copy your client. And there's an example below, but it goes something like this. The subject line is the address. Hey guys, if anybody needs anything from our offices, please let me know. The 7th of June will be here before you know it. Smiley face. If I can help, let me know. You'll be pleasantly surprised that the title person will respond and say, we're good. The lender will respond and say, we're good. Everybody's good, but you're just keeping people engaged. And then we start calling all of these these final emails, right? This final email happens to be about scheduling of the walkthrough. If you had remedies, ensuring that the receipts for those remedies that are show paid are on the kitchen counter. Because you've got remedy receipts that you want to make sure you have. You want to make sure that the listing agent understands you're going to have a final walkthrough. The contract just says that you may have a walkthrough. It doesn't mean you're going to. Your client might not be able to, and you just skip the walkthrough. But you're just confirming, I'm going to have a walkthrough. Please have those remedy receipts ready for me. Hey, by the way, can I get that list of utility companies from you, listing agent, so my client can transfer them into their name as of the date of possession or the day after? Nobody wants to argue about possession date. If it's at 5 p.m., nobody's going to shut off your utilities over a few hours. My point is, get those remedy things squared away, schedule that final walkthrough, get the utility information from the other agent. Do you have to worry about the seller having taken those utilities out of their name? No. Would you like to? Sure, go ahead. You've got to have some trust that the listing agent's going to instruct their seller to call for final readings for the date of possession, and that when your client calls, because the utility company will tell them most of the time, well, we don't have any call-in for final readings, so can't help you. Well, then you just get a hold of the agent and say, hey, remind your selling client to please get these things final read. So it's just an email. Final walk. Let's handle remedies this way. Hey, I need that list of utility companies. By the way, listing agent, it'd be great if you and I handled the possession between ourselves. Can you just tell the sellers to have all the extra keys and garage remotes and appliance warranties in a nice little pile, maybe put it in a drawer in the kitchen. We'll gather all that stuff when we get in there, and we'll just use the key that's in the lockbox, and I'll transfer that to my client on the date of possession. I'll get it from you, listing agent. Perform that service for your client. Deliver them the key. There it is. You're closed. You're ready to roll. Any questions about how to handle a buyer? There's some examples down here of how to make sure your buying client gets connected to the title company and gets the title company's wiring instructions. It's all here. So you got utilities, remedies, wiring instructions, possession, how to get the key. It's all here for you.
I did have a few ones where I had fire this day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Until it had funded. Yeah. So Sheila made a good point. Possession is technically based upon closing and funding. And if you've got a listing agent that's kind of either old school or I don't know, maybe they're a narcissist, not sure, but they're going to wait on funding before they hand you a key. It's okay. They're protecting their client.
I've seen it stipulated.
Yep.
In the contract, I've seen it in all different types of ways.
Closing and funding, possession and closing and funding.
I mean, to me, legally, if it says closing,
Yeah, technically, yes.
but
Right.
I don't think we only had one person kind of
Push back on you. What other feedback do we have? We're going to be able to get through the seller side pretty quickly because it looks pretty darn similar. Any other feedback on this outstanding checklist that Dana put together?
Mark, I can just say like, so Mark, just my only comment is like sending the emails to the weekly check-in emails. If I had like $1 for every time a title company would respond and say, hey, I'm glad you reached out. We're actually missing this. We're actually missing that.
Yes.
And although I'm sure they would have caught it, but me sending a weekly email just kind of expedited it and kept things rolling.
It's a great point, right?
Yeah,
You are
and
the hub.
for sure. Mm-hmm.
They are the spokes. My cousin, very successful commercial
Exactly.
agent, very successful commercial agent, said this to me once, and I'll never forget it. He said, Mark, never forget that nobody cares about your closing as much as you do. Nobody. including your clients. You care about your closing more than anybody else, not because of the money that's waiting for you guys. You care about the closing. So ensure that it goes well. And Dana makes a great point. You know, you're reminding people. I'm glad you said something. I'm missing this. Think of the title person and the lender.
Or even just like telling your clients,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, even like reminding your clients to keep an eye out on emails from title, because yeah, we are watching our emails like a hawk, but often people have jobs and they're not watching their email. A lot of men, no pun intended, but they don't watch their emails as much as women
That's
do.
not
They
funny,
just,
so there is
it's
no
just
mistake.
true. And they might go a couple days and not check their
What do they
emails,
call that one?
but there might be some
Misogyny.
time sensitive things there. So
Yeah, we're with you completely.
for sure.
So you make a great point, which is you're the hub, they're the spokes, remind people, and you will catch things well before closing, because at that point they become a problem. Yes.
The one thing, another thing.
Homeowners insurance?
Client waited until the very end to get homeowners insurance, and their lender's like, well, they gotta have it 3 days behind, so part of it was the lender because he didn't stay on them, but he didn't tell me until it was like, we had to extend the closing again.
Okay. The statement / question / issue in the room was a buyer waited to the last minute to get their homeowners insurance in place. And the lender involved didn't light up Sheila early enough for her to step in and help with that. Yes, these things do happen. By taking this approach, generally speaking, you'll not have to cross that bridge. Anything else? This is great stuff.
This is going to help the actual steps. First of all, just to let you know, what the more than but secondly, with this NAR settlement, I needed to thoroughly understand what actually was that, so I can tell my values to
Sure. You're buying client value,
Yeah,
yes.
So this was really helpful. So thank you.
Sure. All right. Let's scroll into, did we transition? No, there should be a blank here. Open.
I mean, at the top.
Oh, that's right. I blew by it before, didn't I? Guys, we're going to be able to go through this pretty quickly. This is the same. It's just a seller now. The steps are pretty similar. Send the fully executed contract to your client's selected title company. Follow the transaction timeline. Fill it in. Send it to your clients. All your fully executed listing documents to admin for review. Send the title company in advance of going into contract. They start files on people all the time, guys. In advance of going into contract, send your client's information to the title company. They're going to close it. It's going to go into contract, right? Sure. I send all that stuff right away. Why wait? They open a file and you're good to go. Now, Dana added one thing: make sure the home warranty invoice gets to the title company so they know to charge it if it's picked up by the buyer. In the 210 case, if they get converted by the buyer and it's asked for, you want to make sure they have the invoice. It's a great catch. Nothing changes there. Connect the title company with the buyer's agent and the buyer's lender. The only difference there is that you connected them with your buyer's lender. You want to involve the buyer's agent on a listing. Connect them all. And Dana said it here again. Remind our clients to look out for emails from the title company. They won't get any emails from the lender. They won't get any emails from the buyer's agent. They shouldn't. But they'll get plenty of emails from the title person and from you. Prepare your seller for inspections if you've got them in your offer. You're gonna get a phone call from the showing service saying, we'd like to schedule the inspection. You confirm it with your selling client, and inspections are off and running. There's your HOA, COA reminder.
So if you want showing and set up as a show and go.
Go and show. Yeah, yeah.
Do you still need to confirm with your,
I always want to know who's in that house.
yes, but do you check yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I want to know, and I want them to know. Yep. Disclose, disclose, disclose. That might be the weekend that they're coming back into town and didn't know that the inspector's going to be, it'd just be our luck, right? Repeat the message. This stuff should all be done in 2 hours. It says 2 days. Get it done in 2 hours. Make your life easier. Negotiate remedies, ensure the title commitment comes, and ensure the loan commitment comes. Guys, your contract is very specific about this. It keeps both sellers and their agents and buyers and their agents on the hook. As a buyer, you need to conform to what you promised in the contract. As a selling agent, if you don't ask for the stuff that you were promised, it also gives your sellers right to terminate the contract for not having those things past the timelines. They can't terminate. The only example I can think of is your buyer has not performed. It's still moving forward, but you haven't notified the seller, and communications have broken down. And the seller, even though it's contingent on the MLS, an agent who saw it before and they didn't get it, and they make a backup offer because it's been contingent for 20 days. And they just put a backup offer in, and that seller would just love to take it. But that seller's agent didn't insist upon evidence of financing. They didn't insist upon these things. These dates have been allowed to come and go with no pushback. That seller cannot terminate for your lack of performance because they didn't ask for any of this stuff. You didn't give it to them. Shame on you. You just put your buyer at risk. They didn't ask for it. Shame on them. They can't take that better deal. It's right in the contract. So don't put yourself in that position. Follow this. Do what you promised, and ask the buyer's agent, if you're dealing with a listing, to do as they promised. And if they don't, extend timelines that make sense to extend, or come to the bottom of it between you and the other agent. Conform to your contract. And she says it right there in red. Everything's going hunky-dory. Relax. You're there. And then you get into your weekly updates, your emails. Think about this, guys. Let's just say the average contract takes 35 days to close from contract to close. In the first 2 days, you're done with stuff. By day 10, you're certainly through inspections and remedies. You're waiting on a loan commitment and title commitment. Those come, say, in the first 15 days. You've got a full 16, 17, 15 from 35, 20. You've got 20. Boy, that math was hard. I don't know why. You got 20 days to just send out emails and make sure everybody's behaving and relaxing. You can see now why I've always been convinced that this is not a big effort. The more you do it, the more effortless it becomes. Will you have all the stories that we've shared back and forth tonight about this happened and that? Yes, and you'll have more. This will tamp down that anxiety. It will tamp down those things that happen oddly or weirdly. It will force you to be an expert, to be that person that your buying or selling client comes to rely upon. When they see these emails coming out from you that you're blind copying them on, man, my agent's on this. You don't, and I'll evoke her name again. You don't want to go into a contract on one of Delina Siamaco's listings and not perform. She will terminate on you in a heartbeat. She has a staff that will send an email to you daily, reminding you of your obligations as a buyer's agent. And I admire the heck out of it, even though it bothers me. Conform to the contract. We don't have to go through this whole thing like we did before. It's all written out for you. All kinds of examples of emails are right there, tons of them. Dana put a lot of work into this. Study it, use it. Let's go to the transaction timeline. We've got about 6 minutes. I'll finish with PTAC. I'll just make it brief. It's going to be easy. Dot loop. Let's just hope that this one has me. I don't recognize some of these loops because they're shared with me. Yep, so that's not one of them. Back to loops. Let me go into one of mine. Let's find this one. Here. Oh, look, I can find it because it says pre-offer. Transaction. And it has my name on it. You know who? Somebody taught me that. I forget who. Watch, the transaction timeline's not going to be in here. It's not. I can't even find it in the miscellaneous folder. Oh, no, there it is. It's got to be in here. Thank you, Jesus. I don't mean that blasphemously for those of us that are faithful. Let me move this. Let me just hit autofill. And there's a transaction timeline. So by the time you are doing your AMP timeline, this is fully filled out, guys. You can autofill a bunch of it. Buyer's agents here, title company and lender are here. And then all you're doing is following your contract with these deadlines. Let's just clarify them. If you have earnest money, you put it there and you put the date that it's due there and the date that it was actually deposited there. Attorney review. Three days after contract or 3 days after remedies are resolved. Those are the two choices on the contract. 3 days after contract or 3 days after remedies are resolved. If you don't have remedies, it's automatically 3 days after contract. Those are the two options on the contract. If you have remedies, you would definitely make it 3 days after remedies, guys. There's no reason to have your client wire or take their money to the title company, or as a bunch of us would do, take it ourselves, just to have it be returned when you don't get remedies worked out. Attorney review. Don't remember the last time I filled that out. I don't need attorneys involved in my real estate transaction. You and I know more about real estate contracts than most attorneys, except for real estate attorneys. That's a quote from a real estate attorney. Cash transaction letter, that's proof of funds. That's a different term for that. If it's a cash transaction, when are your proof of funds due? If you have a cash transaction, when should your proof of funds be due? I'll ask
When you submit the offer.
Thank you. I'll ask it a different way. When you have a buyer that's getting a loan, when should your requalification letter be due? When you submit the offer, right? So that would be day 0. Pre-qualification is not a pre-approval. It's the pre-qualification letter that you send with your contract. So this is proof of funds. This is pre-qualification letter. Loan application, guys, is I think 3.2b. It's your promise that your client is going to go submit all their documents, either online or in person, to their lender within a certain number of days. Your lender should be informing everybody involved in the transaction that that's done. They should just send out an email to everybody. Yep, we have their docs. They met their 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, too long, but strategically speaking, you want your buying clients to be running to their lender within 3 days after going into contract and providing their documents. Identify lender to seller. We covered that in the AMP timeline. Demand of financing evidence. Demand of financing evidence is paragraph 5. That's a guess. But that is the seller's agent, if you haven't provided everything that you promised to up to that point, saying, hey, we want this stuff. It is a good reminder that if you're not performing and they're not demanding it, everybody's in trouble. So it's a good thing to have on there. Number of days varies. The contract says that if they don't demand the financing evidence within 5 days of the date that you promised you would apply for your loan, and it's prior to the loan commitment, so that doesn't count. That, again, that could be 3 days, so it'd be 8 days. It could be 5 days for your buyer to go to their lender, so that could be 10 days. That varies. But it's 5 days after they have applied for their loan. Inspection is obvious, remedies are obvious. HOA docs are always due 5 days after going into contract if it exists. Loan commitment to seller is dependent upon whether you put 10, 15, 21, or left it blank. Title commitment, 15 days prior to closing. There are exceptions to that. That'll usually be to you about 2 weeks after going into contract. Remind yourself of the walkthrough, the closing date, and the possession date. Notice it's just, here's what's supposed to happen and when. It's not, what the hell do I do about it? Now you know what to do. Fill this out, send it to your client so that they have an idea of these dates, and then do your job and blind copy your client on all the communications that you're having with all the other parties. Anything about that not make sense? How am I doing on keeping it low right? I'm doing my
There
best.
you go. Okay, so loan commitment to seller. So what's the difference? Okay, seller demand for financing evidence.
Correct.
Exactly what is that?
That's 5 days after the date that your clients were supposed to apply for their loan officially.
But is that just saying, yes, they did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And how many selling agents have ever called you when you've had a buyer on a listing and said, we want to know that your client went to the bank? 0. That's not good. But
But is it because, like, I let them know that they did the loan application?
it's because your lender lets them know that, yes, they've applied for their loan. Yes. So it gets skipped a lot, maybe for that reason. But it gets skipped a lot because listing agents just don't do it.
Okay,
Again, Delina and Rick and others are the exception.
okay.
Any questions about anything having to do with transaction timeline? We've got 3 minutes. I want to go through PTAC real quick. Guys, PTAC has to do with this racetrack. You all stepped on it when you came on board AMP, know it or not. This is the track that you're on. Your business over time gets relegated into platforms or networks. We call those networks or platforms KV Core, Facebook or social media, the Flex system, and .loop. Those are the 4 places that all of your clients reside in all the time. If you met somebody a day ago and you have their contact information, they should be in your KV Core, and you should be friends with them on Facebook immediately. So all of your clients to be, people in transactions or closed clients, are in your database, KV Core. They're in your Facebook, and at a certain period of time in this life of a real estate agent, they reside in your Flex system and your .loop, don't they? Your buying clients, because you're looking for houses for them, are in the Flex system. Your buying and selling clients that are in a transaction are in .loop. They are also in KV Core and in your social media. Of course, they should be. PTAC stands for pipeline, which is this 60% one, transactions, and after close. It describes your entire business model in those 4 letters, PTAC. Every 15 days, I will have those 4 platforms open, and I will simply recapture where I stand with these various clients. I'll check my database, make sure it's updated. Remind myself to get my newsletter out that month. I'll check Facebook, send out 5 or 10 direct messages. Look for friends. send out some stuff. I'll check Flex. I've got about a dozen people that I have on auto searches right now. They're getting houses from me. Some of them are more active than others. It's a wise idea to step outside of the Flex system and just email all those folks. How's it going? Should we change your criteria? Haven't heard from you in a while. We toured 2 weeks ago, haven't toured anything since then. Interest rates are down. PTAC allows you to take a snapshot picture of your business and get it all done in about an hour. It doesn't replace what you should be doing daily in all of these same platforms, right? We all know that we should be checking the Flex system on Mondays and Fridays to see how many houses are on the market. We all know that every 2 or 3 weeks, we should be texting our favorite lenders to find out what current interest rates are so that we can have an intelligent, generic conversation when somebody comes up to us at church, a party, a gathering, or whatever the circumstances are, and they ask us, how's the market? How you doing in real estate?
I want to check them more frequently because they've been pretty volatile over the past.
Justin says you might want to check interest rates more frequently. They've been pretty volatile. Any questions about PTAC? Practice that, guys. Recognize where your folks are and open those systems and engage with them for some focused time every couple of weeks. That's PTAC. My wife and I usually gather around the kitchen table and do it together. It's fun to get updated on people. I appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time. It's been 1 hour and 1 minute. If there's nothing else, have a great evening and thank you for being here, everybody.